All right, so this one and the rest of you that like had other questions, you can tell me like what that front number is, but I'll tell you right now that this is tricky because of the 9 on the outside. It can't stay there. So we have to get rid of it by bringing it to the bottom as 1/9. So if there's a number on the front and it doesn't go away by dividing because it's already equal to 1, then that's what you have to do. You basically have to take it from the numerator and bring it down to the denominator. Because if I'm dividing by a 9th, it's the same thing as multiplying by 9. So whichever version you had, like obviously the 9 is what changed. You had to do that for each of them. You had to bring them down to the denominator and then do it that way. So the a squared, because 1 is bigger than 1/9, the a squared is 1 and a is 1. The b squared is 1/9, so b is 1/3. And then you have to, because the a is under the y, I know this to be a vertical ellipse. My center is at 0, 0 here. And then I'd go up the a, which is 1, and I go down a, which is -1. So my vertices are here, 0, -1, and 0, 1. The a was 1, okay? Then if I need to find c, which I need to find c for the focus, but I also need to find c for the eccentricity. Remember, c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So c squared would equal a squared is 1, and b squared is 1/9. So c squared equals, this would be 9/9 minus 1/9, or 8/9. So c would equal the square root of 8 over the square root of 9. And 8 becomes 2 root 2, and the square root of 9 becomes 3. So that's my c. So then the eccentricity is c over a. So it'd be 2 root 2 over 3 over 1, which just becomes 2 root 2. If you left it as square root of 8, it took your answer. Like it was okay with that. But just keep in mind that it probably would need to be rationalized if it's an answer for like an open-ended or a multiple choice on our end. So if I was to graph this, because that was the last part, obviously I'm going up and down 1. Then I have to go right and left 1/3. So it looks something like that. And then the foci, I would take my center, which is 0, 0, and add and subtract the c from the y because it's vertical. So it would be 0, -2 root 2 over 3, and 0, +2 root 2 over 3.
So the foci is the same thing as the focus?
Foci is the plural of the focus. Oh, that's what you meant? Yeah, foci is the plural of, so I think I wrote it yesterday. It's not typed in the notes. I think I just wrote it somewhere, but foci is plural of a focus. Okay. Sorry, like radii is plural of a radius. Oh, yeah. It's a weird word. It just means more than one focus.
Can you do number 10 real quick? I left the work classes today and I got...
Okay, so when it shifts, my center moved, right? So my center is the opposite of what follows x and the opposite of what follows y. So my center is 6, -2. The a squared is still the bigger, so the a squared is 9, and the a is 3. The b squared is 4, and the b is 2. So that part's the same. And c squared still equals a squared minus b squared. So c squared equals 9 minus 4, and c squared equals 5, and c equals the square root of 5. So those three things are the same.
Is that a squared minus b squared?
No, it's just minus. A squared minus b squared. So because my center is, I'm going to actually pull in a coordinate grid so it's more exact. My center is 6, -2, which is here. The a squared, the bigger number's under the y, so this is vertical. So I go up and down the a. So I go up 1, 2, 3, and I plot a point, down 1, 2, 3, and plot a point. Then I go right and left the b, left 2, right 2. There's my ellipse. So the vertices, I shifted up and down the b. So the x stays the same, which is 6. The negative 2, I added 3 to it, and I'm at 1. And I subtracted 3 to it, and I'm at negative 5. The co-vertices, I now changed the x. So the y stays the same, and the x went left and right too. So I'd get 4, negative 2, and 8, negative 2. And then the focus always lies on the major axis, which is the vertical. So if it's moving of the vertical, that means the x stays the same, and I change the y. So I take my c, so the x stays the same, and I take my c and subtract it from the y, and I add it to the y.
Wait, I'm confused as to how you got the focus. Is there like a formula for the focus?
C squared equals a squared minus b squared.
So the same thing as the ellipse, or sorry, not the ellipse,
That's C all the time.
oh.
Yeah, for an ellipse, that's C no matter what. The difference is before it moves, before it shifts off center, the C we're adding a 0. You're adding and subtracting from 0.
Okay.
This time, you're adding it and subtracting it to a moved to the HK, whatever, and because it's vertical, I added it on to the vertical, which is the Y, and subtracted it from the Y.
When you put like 6 for the, like it keeps like the x the same, is that like the x of like the vertex?
Of the center.
Of the center?
Yep.
And then if it was the y, then it would just be the y the center?
So if it's vertical, right, think about it, if it's a vertical ellipse, no matter where it is, the A we add and subtract from the X. So it's H plus and minus the A, and the K stays the same. Nope, I lied. If it's vertical, the X stays the same, and the K is what changes, right? I go up and down.
And that second part's the C.
If it's, so this would be this would be the vertices, and the foci is the same axis, so it would be K plus and minus C.
Okay.
The co-vertices is on the other axis, the minor axis, so the H would change with the B. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then all that changes if it's a horizontal ellipse. If it's horizontal, my vertices are on the X. So the vertices, I change the X. H plus and minus A. The foci, I change the X. And the co-vertices is the minor, I change the Y. So whichever is the major axis is what you add the A and the C to get the vertice and the foci. Whatever is the minor axis is what you add the B to get the co-vertices.
Wait, does it matter what order the vertices and foci are in? The H plus minus K and
When you list them, you mean?
yeah.
On WebAssign it said the smaller one and the bigger one.
Okay, it's just like they're different order in those parentheses. Does that matter? Like on the board right now?
What do you mean different order?
Like the green one is HK plus minus A, and the vertices is H plus and minus A K.
Yes, this is for vertical. This is for horizontal.
Okay.
And this was on the last chart. So if you look back at the chart slides, this was the last one where we shifted the center.
Okay.
So yesterday we did the graphing of them. Today we're going to do the finding the equation. So we do the reverse order. So I'm going to write this out on the top, just a quick reminder, and this is what was in your notes from yesterday, okay? There's two different kinds, horizontal and vertical. And within them, there's two different kinds, a center at 0, 0, and a center not at 0, 0, so we're going to call it HK. So a horizontal with a center at 0, 0 is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. Remember the a squared is the biggest. So it's not necessarily the order. That could be y squared over b squared plus x squared over a squared. Remember, everything's on the video, so if you don't see it right now, yes, you can rejoin, sure. Okay, so that's your horizontal. If it's vertical, then it's y squared over a squared plus x squared over b squared equals 1. And again, remember, order doesn't matter. It's that the larger number is underneath the y this time. Then, if the center's at HK, it's x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. If the a is under the x squared. So again, bigger number needs to be under the x squared for it to be horizontal. And then if it's vertical, it's y minus k squared over a squared plus x minus h squared over b squared. So the h is always with the x, the k is always with the y. For all of this, a equals the distance between the center and vertices. B, distance between center and co-vertices. C, distance between center and focus. A and C are on the major axis. B is on the minor axis. Okay, oh good. And the last thing was c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, we need that to establish the relationship between a, b, and c. Yesterday I also gave you eccentricity equals c over a, major axis length equals 2a, because we're going to see that today, and minor axis equals 2b. So this is kind of like your cheat sheet, okay, for ellipses, but you definitely need to know all that stuff. Questions on anything before we move into the equations? Okay. So now we're writing the equation in standard form. So it's going to look like one of those four at the top, where if there's we're going to plug in for A, we're going to plug in for B, we're going to plug in for K and H. So those things need to be there. It needs to be a squared, obviously. It needs to be equal to 1 at the end. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw myself a graph. I'm drawing out my graph with what I have, which is center at 0, 0. We go down that one, right? That means there's no H and there's no K. Focus is at 0, positive, and negative 3. So I went up 3, down 3. And those are my foci.
How do you guys know like up?
Because the coordinate point is 0, 3, and 0, negative 3, right? So the y changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I know it's vertical. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that probably messed you up from the rest of the time over. Okay, so now we know it's vertical. If it's vertical, it means the x gets the b and the y gets the a. I don't know b or a yet, but I know that c is the distance from the 0 to the focus, which means c is 3. Now there's one last piece of information that I gave you, which was what?
Major axis length.
Major axis is 8. What did we say the major axis is equal to?
2a.
Good. So if 8 equals 2a, what is a? 4. So now I know a is 4, which means I can plug this one in. I know c is 3. The only other thing I need is b. And c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So 3 squared equals 4 squared minus b squared. 9 equals 16 minus b squared. negative 7 equals negative b squared. So b squared equals 7. If I was to graph this, I would need to square root that. But in my equation, I use b squared, so I don't even have to square root that.
How did you get the B?
A squared minus
I'm sorry, how did you get the C?
the foci. So we went up 3 and down 3.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh.
So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug in the information I just found. X squared over b squared, which is 7, plus y squared over a squared, a was 4, so a squared is 16, equals 1. All right, we're going to go through this one a little faster.
I'm sorry. So,
Wait, that's it?
if you're looking for B,
Yeah, all you need is the equation.
wouldn't you have to square root 7 to get?
If you wanted b, but the equation uses b squared.
Okay, because in which equation are we using for this one? Like in the
It doesn't matter, all of them have b squared.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so 6. Centers at 0, 0. Yes.
Just a quick question. So your final answer would just be the
This.
x squared over 7 plus y squared over 16 equals 1. That's like the final.
Yep, you're finding the equation.
So we don't have to, like, so far, we don't have to graph.
Yeah. We're graphing them to get information out of the graph. We're not actually graphing it right now. Yeah.
How is actually, I just realized, how's that one vertical? Wouldn't it be horizontal?
Which one?
The one we just did.
No, because the C is on the vertical. So the C is always on the major. C and A are on the same.
I thought the vertices were on the.
They would be. We didn't graph the vertices. The C, the focus, and the vertices are on the same. The co-vertices are on the other.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so 6, centers at 0, 0. Focus is positive 2, 0, negative 2, 0. So I'm moving to the right 2, and I'm moving to the left 2. And these are my foci. What can you tell me about this graph already? It's horizontal. What else?
C is 2.
C is 2. My HK is 0, 0, right?
The a squared goes under the x.
Good. A squared goes under the x squared because it's horizontal. Last piece of information is the vertices are plus and minus 3, 0. So I go to the right 3, I go to the left 3. Those are my vertices. What does that tell you?
The
A is 3. So I have C and I have A. I find B by doing C squared equals A squared minus B squared. 2 squared equals 3 squared minus B squared. 4 equals 9 minus B squared. Negative 5 equals negative B squared. B squared equals 5. If I was to graph it, I would graph the square root of 5, but my equation is B squared, so I don't need to square root it.
Where did you get the A from?
The vertices are plus and minus 3. So I went right 3 and left 3. So x squared over a squared, a is 3, so this is 9, plus y squared over b squared is 5, equals 1. Questions on that one? Good. He's not surprised.
I like understand it
The first one's always rough, right? It's like, what the crap is she talking about? But then it starts to sink in, hopefully.
Yeah. Especially
Okay.
since I wasn't there. It was a
Yeah, that's rough.
now. I just thought this was the last class of the day again.
No, this day's gonna be so slow.
Yeah.
I was like yesterday.
Wednesday's slow, and then I feel like Thursday, Friday speed up. Wednesday's like Wednesday. Yeah. All right. Let's look at it again. See what we can set up. Vertices, 0 and plus and minus 5. Where's the vertices going? Up and down or right and left?
Up and down.
Up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did I give you a center this time? No. How do I find the center?
It's the opposite of the coordinates.
Mm-mm.
Would it be like in between?
Halfway between those two. What's halfway between positive 5 and negative 5? 0. It's the midpoint of those two, right? If it wasn't obvious, I'd have to add the 2x's, divide by 2, add the 2y's, divide by 2. So center at 0, 0. Vertices at 0, 5. So I know this is what?
Wait, repeat what you just said?
What else? What do you know about this graph?
Vertical.
Vertical. What else do you know? A is 5. So I know it's x squared over b squared because it's vertical. Y squared over a squared. Uh-huh.
With these ones, when there's like a 0 and then like a number that's not 0, for when it gives you like a vertice.
That's your A.
Yeah.
If it was co-vertices, it'd be your B.
Yeah.
And if it's focus, it's your C.
Yeah. So-
Only when it's at 0, 0 though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, if it's wouldn't your C be 5? Because that's how.
No. That's if it's that's a foci. Foci is C.
Oh, okay.
Vertex is A, co-vertex is B, foci is C. All right. Oh. Yeah. I wish our closets were bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. One of us. We'll paper, rock, scissors to see who gets to go in there. I'm just kidding.
That's what I feel.
All right, so we know it's vertical, right? We know the A is 5, and we know it passes through point 42. There's nothing about B, right? There's nothing about C, right? What does passes through tell us, though?
It goes through it.
That's an X and that's a Y. So I have 4 squared over B squared, that's my unknown, plus 2 squared over A, which we know is 5, squared equals 1.
Oh.
So I had an X, I had a Y, I had an A, I was only left with one variable. So 16 over B squared plus 4 over 25 equals 1. Now what?
Square root it.
Not yet.
Oh. Can you cancel out the b squared?
Nope.
Get the fractions out.
You could get the, well, but then you're gonna bring it in on the other side.
Be like 1/16.
Move one of them to the other
I would move this one. There's a couple different ways to approach this, but I would do that. 1 minus 4 over 25, and 1 becomes 25 over 25. So that's 21 over 25.
I literally forgot about the 1.
Wait, would be 4, when you take away the 25, would it just be 4 over 1?
Say that again. When you take away the 25,
It'd just be 4 over 1.
No, you bring the whole fraction.
it's a fraction.
Oh.
Fraction minus a fraction.
Oh,
We get to like complex math and we forget little stuff. It's hard, right? It's like conics came in and then other stuff went out. Something had to give, right?
That's me on my test. So they'll be like, what's 2 plus 2? I'm like that.
So from here, I would cross multiply. You could multiply by the b, and then divide by the fraction. But if you have one fraction on either side, cross multiply.
Large number.
So for time purposes, I cheated. 16 times 25 is 400. Then I would divide both sides by 21. I don't think that goes in evenly. No. So b squared equals 400 over 21. Is it a horrible number? Yes. Do I have to do anything with it? No. That's my denominator. I don't have to square root it because I'm not graphing it, right? That just goes in the last unknown place.
Is that always defined method?
Yeah, because we had the A, We didn't have the b.
Um,
So x squared goes over 400 over 21 plus y squared goes over the a squared, which is 25, equals 1. Now you can also see this written as 21x squared over 400. So they will flip it just to get rid of the fraction in the denominator. Web assign will take either one.
is this a done?
Mm-mm. Questions on that one? Okay, number 8. Vertices at 3, 3, and 3, negative 3. Actually, let me get this. Hey, give me the line. There it goes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Vertices. What do I already know? A is 3. Oops, not 0. A is 3.
B is 1.
We don't know B. Oh, yeah, you know B from this. That's right. B would be 1. Yep.
It's vertical, we know the
And it's vertical, right? Vertical. So x squared over b squared, y squared over a squared. That we know.
What do you equal 2 to get b? 2 equals 2b?
Yeah, minor axis is 2b. What else do we know?
center.
The center. The center is not at 0, 0 anymore. It's at 3, 0. So that means this has an H and this has a K.
Fun.
Oh, that's it though. That was it.
Oh yeah, because we already found
That's
the
it.
B.
We already know the A. We already know the B. Everybody's like, oh, that's it.
Wait, like what?
We know X.
So the X.
This is H. This is K. This is minus 3 squared over. The B was 1. So it'd go over 1 because 1 squared is 1. Plus the Y is minus 0 squared. The A squared, A is 3. A squared is 9.
So it's all minuses.
So this is actually x minus 3 squared plus y squared over 9 equals 1. That's as simple as it gets. You don't need the over 1, although WebAssign will not mark it wrong. And you don't need the minus 0, although I'm pretty sure WebAssign will not mark that wrong either.
So the H and the K come from the center?
Correct.
And since this is a vertical line, you use the vertical formula?
Correct. The vertical tells me the A goes under the Y. Questions? All right, so I graphed 0, 0, 4, 0. Those are my foci. What do you know already?
The center.
Center would be where?
2.
2, 0. That's my H, that's my K. Not yet. Oh, because you went to the second part. Major axis is 2A. So A is 4. It's horizontal.
That makes sense.
So the X gets the A.
I know. No, I don't. Yes, I do. Those vertices.
Yeah. We need the A, we need the B, we need the C. We have the A.
0.
C would equal 2.
6.
C would equal 2. How do we know that, Ethan?
It's the focus are 2 away from the center.
Good. C is 2. Now, C squared equals A squared minus B squared. 2 squared equals 4 squared minus B squared.
Wait, didn't you already have b from the
No, we didn't have B. We had C and we had A. Focus is C, major is A.
Okay, so if it's horizontal, then you do 2a, and if it's
No, major is always 2A, minor is 2B, always. It doesn't matter if it's vertical or horizontal.
So would this be, since it's horizontal, would it be, x minus h over?
The A goes under the H, yep.
What do you mean major and minor again?
Like the word major and minor. So major axis is 2A, minor axis is 2B.
This concludes the code yellow drill. This concludes the code yellow drill.
Oh, we read it before, so it's just like two constants.
So X gets the H and X gets the A right underneath. So X minus 2 squared over A squared, A was 4, so A squared 16, plus, it'd be Y minus 0, so I don't need to keep that, it's just Y squared, over the B squared, which is 12, equals 1.
And you don't have to put -0.
No, you can put it, I think it will mark it right. If you did minus 0, it's not going to mark it wrong, but you don't need it. Yeah.
The C was where the center was, that just is coincidence, it's not what happened, right?
Correct. Yeah, it just happened that it was that same distance. Like if I set up this last one, it's 0, 0, right? And 0, 8. So my halfway point is at 4. Now it's vertical. My center is 0, 4. This is vertical. So the Y gets the A. And C is from the center to the focus from 4 to 8 or 0 to 4 is 4. A is from here to A would equal 16, so A is 8. And then I just have to do C squared minus equals A squared minus B squared to get B. But again, because it's vertical, the Y gets the A.